Thank you for watching this quick video on how to build a script in Vena to synchronize two tenants. So first I'll just talk through some of our goals. So the goals for this is we want to be able to copy actuals from say tenant A to tenant B, and then we want to be able to copy stuff that's not an actual, so non-actuals, from tenant B back to tenant A. So there's kind of a bi-directional data flow here where maybe this could be tenants in different geographies, different data centers, different business groups. Today we'll be using it as we think looking at this from a geographic perspective, where one tenant is in the United States and one tenant is in Europe. So what are the steps that we're going to walk through? We're going to create a Windows batch script. Any scripting language with access to Java is fine. So I'll choose Windows batch script. This is the example I have here. We need to first create an application token for access to each tenant. Then we set the application API user and API token for each tenant in the script. So when you create an application token for a particular tenant, it's going to give you a pair of the API user and API token. Those uniquely identify one connection that can be made to that tenant, and there's also security applied to that particular token. So just like if it was a regular user, you can set the data security and application security on that token. We also want to decide what's the filter to separate which data goes in which direction. So here we're deciding that we want actuals to go from tenant A to tenant B and non-actuals to go from tenant B to tenant A. We have to kind of get fairly specific on that to make sure that we don't have any garbled data or anything overwriting something that shouldn't. Important step, make sure that we've got that ETL jar file in the same folder as the script. This is just to make sure we use this jar file for some of the commands in the script. And it needs Sun Java, recent version is fine, and then we're going to test the script. So first let's take a look at the script. It's going to be here. So here, I'm using Notepad++ to give me some nice color coding. My first command here at echo off is going to, not all of this will be repeated or displayed as part of when the script runs. I only want the pieces to run where I'm echoing it to the screen. So echo is, imagine it was a command line. When you say echo something, it's just going to show that one thing, but it won't actually show the command that does it. So got some samples here. So this way I've set this up is it takes two parameters, year and period. So I can say I want to sync the two tenants for 2020-01, maybe first period of 2020 or any kind of combination. Here's an example. So I want to call sync tenants. This is a batch file. Right now I've called it synctenants.bat. So I would say sync tenants. I could say synctenants.bat with the two parameters 2020-01. This is where I identify that my first parameter is my year. So %1 is my year, %2 is my period. This is where you'd put you also need the model ID. So each model in each tenant is going to have a different model ID. You'll need the model ID, the API user and API key, and also the host. Now for our purposes today, we're going to be separating by legal entities. And we've got some stuff going to and from. The UK model is going to be one and the USA model is going to be one. So for each of those models, you need the model ID, the API user, the API key, and the host. I'm going to have a temporary file. So I'm saying my temporary file, for in our purposes, our actuals come from Oracle. So I'm just going to call it my Oracle data. I'm also going to incorporate the year and period into my file name. So my file name is going to be Oracle 2020-01.csv. And then for stuff that's not from Oracle, it'll be non-Oracle 2020-01.csv. And then there's going to be 4 sections here. Each one is really going to follow us the same pattern. So here we're exporting actuals from the USA model. Notice we're making a call to Java, referencing the jar file. And now we reference all the same pieces that we've set. The API user, API key, the host. We can give it any name we want, same model ID. we're exporting intersections. We have an export query that says just filter on these particular legal entities. And we're doing a couple different things. So the export query identifies these legal entities, these measures, for the particular accounting year and particular period. Export it to our temp file of type CSV, queue it, and wait for it to complete. So the last two pieces here, this queue, if there's something going on right now, if there's a different load already going on or some kind of a calculation that's already happening, it tells the system wait until a clear time when nothing else is running. And this wait fully also tells the system that wait for this command to be done in completion and fully completed before moving on to the next step. So because it's a multi-user environment, then you could very easily just say, hey, I'm going to submit 20 files, and you just let them queue up. The script will be done very quickly after it uploads the files, and the script's done. In this case, I want it to actually wait till this whole thing is complete before it goes on to the next step, because there's a dependency here. So first thing is we're exporting our actuals from the USA model. I'm just putting in some echoes here of the date and time so I can see when these things when these steps complete. We're going to now import that into our UK model. Same kind of thing. Java command referencing our ETL jar with the connection information. We're giving it a job name, connecting it to that model ID. This is our temp file we're now uploading. So now we're uploading the temp file that we just created. It's of type intersections. The format is CSV. Clear slices by dim numbers. So this is important to identify when you're uploading when you're trying to clear, when you're uploading a file. This lets you set which dimensions do you want to set in your clear slices, and this will help make sure that you always have consistent data. So you want to include stuff like year, period, scenario, measure. Those are typical ones you want to include in clear slices. Ones that you want to exclude from clear slices would be maybe account and department. And then again at the end we've got queue and wait fully, because we want this thing to fully complete before we move on. And then at this point we've copied all of our actuals from, say, tenant A to tenant B. Now we want to go the other way. So now we're going to export our non-Oracle information from the UK model. Again, we're using our Java command to reference the jar file, connection information, model information. We're exporting intersections with an export query, very similar to what we had before. The key difference here is we're actually using not. So aside from the not, everything else is the same. CSV, queue, wait fully. So I'll export all the input information from this tenant B that we want to copy back to tenant A. Now that we have our temp file, we're going to import our non-Oracle data back into the USA model. Java command, reference a jar file, connection information, model information, upload this temp file. It's intersections as the type here. In CSV format, clear slices by these numbers, queue and wait fully. So make sure that it waits for everything to complete. And that's the whole script. So if you wanted to play with it a bit, you could certainly change the export query information. This section here, however you want to identify which data you want to move in which direction. This is helpful. This is when you're generating a temp file. It's going to go to a tenant and say, run this query and give me that data back in the CSV format, and that's what I'll then upload to the other place. So now we're ready to give it a go. So I'm going to go to bring up a command prompt. I can type CMD in my little search. I'll get the command prompt app come up. I'm actually going to run this as administrator to make sure I have full access to do to run whatever command or access any network resources that I need. I tend to put all my files in an ETL folder. So that's what it looks like over here. I'm also going to look at it in Windows Explorer. You'll notice here's my ETL jar file. I've got a couple of copies of the batch file as well as my local files here. I'm going to, first for demonstration purposes, I'm going to delete those out. I'm going to give this a go. So now I can see I don't have any of my CSV files, but what I can do is I can run this thing by doing sync tenants sample that. So you'll see what shows on the screen here is just the parts that are now echoing out to the screen. I don't see each of the command prompts showing up. I do see some messages around timing when each step is complete. If I were to look at the details on in the log, I would see the details in the log for each of these steps running on the respective tenants. And you see how it says waiting for job to finish. So it's going to wait for each step to complete. And there we go, now that's all done. So now if I were to scroll up, I can see for each of the importing pieces, I can see which it's generated the files, and these files have kind of come back because they've been generated. And we are good to go. So just to recap, so this Windows script will sync tenants, copy data from one tenant, from tenant A to tenant B, and then a different set of data from tenant B to tenant A to make sure things are in sync. And it runs it as 4 different steps sequentially, waiting for the previous one to finish.